It's time for the February edition of Budget Bombs! Powerful commander cards for under $1.
I'm yours, Joe Cherries.
I'm yours, BZ, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds. You already knew who we were. We're so famous that you should support us on Patreon so we can continue to be awesome. And our patron, Joshua Burnett, has done the same. We appreciate Joshua.
We appreciate all the support from all of our patrons. Thank you all very much, especially you. It's your video, Joshua Burnett. TCG Player is another way you can support this channel. Go there, buy the cards you were going to buy anyway, starting with our affiliate link. And as long as you start with that link, do everything you want on the site, and you're supporting the nerds.
Just bookmark the link. By now, you should have it bookmarked, and I can just tell you, hey, remember that bookmark? And you go, I remember that bookmark, BZ.
Yes, Moxfield.com, also a sponsor of this channel. There's an ad somewhere in this video. Guess the timestamp in the description below. You're already wrong. Sorry, you're incorrect.
If you're right, you cheated, and that's the only reason you're right.
Yes, then there's no other explanation. And happy birthday to everyone whose birthday is today. I mean, this is pretty simple. This is Budget Bombs, and this is February. We're talking about powerful commander cards for under $1. If you have a dollar bill, you have access to these cards because they're that dang cheap.
In a lot of the cases, I think $1 could buy like 6 or 7 cards on this list, because the first example we have for you is Llanowar Elves, Fyndhorn Elves, and Elvish Mystic. They're all 50 cents or less, I'm pretty sure. They are 1-mana dorks. They tap for 1, and as it turns out, these are some of the best cards in the format.
Yeah, I think Fyndhorn Elf is like 60 cents, so slow your roll, BZ. Yeah, they're all under $1. They're all extremely cheap, and when you're playing a high creature deck that wants some ramp, these are some of the best ways to go. Period. Like, they're absolutely amazing, and the fact that they're under $1 just makes them that much more powerful. This is not just a budget card. These are going to be great in budget decks, but they're also going to be great in 8, 9 high-powered decks. Play mana dorks.
CDH decks are full of mana dorks. Pretty much every green deck is just jamming as many dorks is because it's one of the fastest ways to ramp.
Spending 1 mana to go up 1 mana every subsequent turn is a rate you really only get with mana dorks and like wild growth. That's it, because that rate is not really available. Obviously, we have fast mana, but fast mana is broken if you didn't know.
Pack in all your creature synergies, and it's going to be worth it, especially when you cast them and start like drawing cards in the late game. These cards are just ridiculously good.
Yes, super.
Did you need to know that? You just need to know that they're under $1.
Yes, all these cards are really good and under $1. Unbelievable, actually. Next, we have Victimize, and this is one of the best budget reanimation spells in the entire format. When you cast it, as it resolves, you pick a creature, sacrifice that, and bring back 2 creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield. This can sometimes be not only like, you know, a great budget card, but the fact that it brings back 2 things at 3 mana, and your decks that are playing this have tons of things to sacrifice, it sometimes like feels like unbeatable. When they go Victimize and they get back something like a Toxrill and a Mikaeus, for an example, it's like, how am I ever winning from that point?
Victimize is not one of the best reanimation spells, but it is a very good reanimation spell. So like in our high power decks, Victimize does not make the cut. But then when you get down to budget and you look at the fact that this card is like 25 cents, yeah, I'm going to reanimate 2 things for 3 mana, and I'm going to feel great about it.
Yeah, and it's a super interesting dynamic because like this card does provide something that a lot of other reanimation spells don't, in that it is 2 reanimation spells in one. So it does have upside at times, but yeah, like you said, it's more middle of the road. It's a card that's not making my high power decks, but is very good on budget and in lower power decks.
I mean, go ahead and throw in Dread Return. I think Dread Return is 9 cents right now. That's a 4-mana reanimate that you can flash back for free and get 2 for 1, and it's just like Victimize, where it's like, but actually, Dread Return, I think, sees a little bit more play in the high power decks.
Yes, because it has the free cast mode.
From Flashback. Another card I really enjoy casting is Frantic Search. It's 2 and a blue. Draw 2, discard 2, untap 3 lands. So you get like a Faithless Looting at instant speed for net 0. And all you got to do is take advantage of discarding, putting cards in your graveyard, casting an instant or sorcery. And now you're literally paying 0 mana to do something positive.
You just need to combine this with Flashback, Madness, discard synergies. There's a million little tiny things. Add in something like a Teferi's Angel's Insight. Now this is card advantage. You just have to combine it with something little. Your deck has to have that little synergy. And then this is a spell that you cast for 0 mana and got advantage of. It's crazy how much it goes off.
It's already teetering on amazing. You're just getting some selection and you pay a card, but not mana for the selection. So it's already teetering on like a card I would consider a lot of the time. And then if you add anything, even just triggering a Magecraft, an instant or sorcery cast, a Balmor trigger, cards off the chain.
Yeah, exactly. The synergy is what's important with this card. Get a little bit of synergy in your deck. If it works for your commander, you're in for sure. If your commander says you want Madness, if your commander says you want flashback cards, this should be in your deck right away. Like, first card you put in that deck, like, oh, I'm building a Savine's deck. Get this right in.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of budget decks that I brew, and if you're building a budget deck for like 50 or less, I think you'll be stoked to be able to include some actual untapped dual lands like the enemy pain lands. Allied ones, still a little pricey, but they are coming down eventually, maybe when they rotate out of standard. But for now, Caves of Koilos, Llanowar Waste, Shivan Reef, Battlefield Forge, and Yavimaya Coast, that's where you're at. That's the jam. They're all like under $1.
They're all well under $1, and it's awesome. Yeah, like you said, the Allied ones are all a bit over. They're not pricey. They're not really expensive, I wouldn't say, but they're just not budget bombs.
Yeah, you can't put them in like a $50 deck.
Yeah, exactly. But these are absolutely amazing. They're untapped duels in budget decks now, which is a huge upgrade. If you haven't taken out tapped lands for untapped lands and felt how amazing that feels, it puts you basically a turn ahead. You might as well start on turn. If your whole deck had tapped lands and you turn them all to untapped lands, it is like the most ridiculous over-the-top improvement you can make to your deck.
Yeah, I don't. I see a lot of budget decks that totally skimp on the mana base. Please don't do that. You're still hurting yourself. You want to be able to play dual lands, tapped or otherwise, and fix yourself so that your 3 and 2 colors and 4 color decks can still play the game.
Yeah, you still want to get utility out of that mana base too. Like, you want to make sure your mana base fixes you with stuff like the Enemy Pain lands and get some cheap utility lands because those exist too. Super important to budget decks. Like, I am 100% with BZ. Don't skimp on your mana base.
Right. If you're building a $50 deck, your spells aren't $50. You should put at least $5 to $10 on lands.
Yes. Next, we have Ever-Flowing Chalice. And what's weird about this card to me is I feel like it slides under a lot of radars because this is a scalable mana rock. Now, you don't get like the little things that some other mana rocks, you don't get colors, and you don't get like, something like a Mind Stone can sacrifice. You get a little, but this one scales. You always have the 2 mana rock that taps to make 1. That's the going rate.
That's all anybody ever wants.
That's all we ever want. And then this scales into the late game. So if you're going big mana, all right, I can just throw all my extra mana into this, and then later, the next turn, oh, I saved all that mana up for this turn. This card is really, really strong. I really feel like it gets slept on. Now, I know it's competing. This slot is very much being fought for by, like I said, Thought Vessel, Mind Stone, all the Talismans, all the Signets. They're all fighting for the spot. But again, a little bit of synergy. You have like 2 or 3 proliferate cards, something like that. Get this card in your deck. It's just a great mana rock.
Yeah, I think I play this card. I don't think I play this card enough, especially now that it's a budget bomb. Like, in the super, super late game, you can do things like cast this for 4, and it refunds you half of whatever you pay into it. So it's like, I'm not wasting 8 mana. I'm spending 4 of it right now on my Everflowing Chalice. You can answer that if you want. We're in the late game. Is that the threat? It's probably whatever I cast with it.
Yes, and exactly. In the late game, it's that big rock. In the early game, it's exactly what you want. It's the 2 mana, make 1 mana rock, which is exactly what you want out of your rocks.
And actually, it's got other utility because you can cast it for 0, so there's just even more to this card.
It becomes a combo piece. Yes, yeah. It literally actively becomes a combo piece with certain things like Hullbreaker Horror.
Which is not that expensive.
Which is not that expensive of a card. It's pretty cheap. So, like, it just has combos on top of being this amazing mana rock.
Yes, let's get yourself an Everflowing Chalice.
Yes. Next, we have Mulldrifter. This has been a staple of the format since, like, Lorwyn. Lorwyn's, what, 20 years old? It's not really 20 years old, I don't think.
Don't say that. 17?
Oh, God. It's so old. Lorwyn, since it's come out and since Commander's been a thing, this card's been a staple. It's a flicker staple. I don't think you want to play this in many other places. But when you're playing a flicker deck, Mulldrifter gets the job done. It's divination that you can flicker.
Yeah, I think Power Creep has taken Mulldrifter out of staple status, and it's firmly in the Blink deck, especially budget Blink. I'm all over Mulldrifter. Get it in my deck. I'm going to ephemerate it. I'm going to blink it with like Rune and stuff, and I'm just going to have a great time.
Yeah, one of the best things about Mulldrifter is the fact that you don't, like all the other versions of this card, like your Cloud Blazers and stuff, they always cost the premium cost. But when you have Mulldrifter, if you have the flicker spell or you have the Rune on the battlefield, a way to flicker this, you get to pay this lower cost, this divination cost, and then flicker it. And that's when this card really shines, because it's like when you go play this and then ephemerate it, it's like it feels like you can never catch up to them because they just drew 4 cards, and if they untap, they're drawing another 2 cards.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think even everyone's been there where they like cast it for the 2 and the blue. find the flicker spell in the 2 cards they draw and then do it.
Yep, because you stack your triggers. There's 2 triggers. There's an evoke trigger to sacrifice it, and there's a draw 2. Let's draw first, and then flick, and then see if we draw the flicker. If not, get to the graveyard.
Yeah, if you want to shut down Muldrifters, I think that one of the best ways to do that is Narset, Parter of Veils. It's one of the best planeswalkers in the format. It's one of the cheapest planeswalkers in the format because it's an uncommon. She replaces herself right away with a non-creature, non-land card, and now your opponents can't draw extra cards. Shuts them down if you can protect this thing, but if you can't, you pay 3 mana to cycle and inconvenience people. So it's like the floor is pretty high.
Yeah, Narset, Parter of Veils is just one of the better planeswalkers in the format. Like this we're talking about like a top 5, top 10 planeswalker in the entire format, and this card is under $1. The fact is, you get Narset, you replace itself, you shut down all the draws, and then this has a 2-card combo where when you play it with a wheel effect, something like Windfall, which is over $1, but not much. When you play this with Windfall, all of a sudden you just pretty much put yourself in a position where you're probably 90% to win the game from there because they all have 1 card in hand, and you're just sitting with a fresh new 7.
Yeah, there's plenty of cards with Narset that are just completely backbreaking. Game over style. You can play budget and still play to win, like play high power stuff, and Narset is like the best card for that. Seriously, if I'm trying to build a no holds barred budget deck, I can't imagine I'm not playing Narset if I'm playing blue.
Yeah, absolutely. No holds barred, it's 100% Narset's going to make every single one of those decks. Next, we have Playcrafter. 3 mana, comes down, everybody sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, and if they can't, they discard a card. This is the by far best version of this card we've ever seen printed.
Not close.
And I think one of the things that really made me just like want to make sure it was on this list today, literally playing last Friday at Commander, I wiped the board, played a planeswalker out, and was like, all right, I'm in a great position. And then they played the Playcraft to get rid of it. And it also, the other person across from me had a planeswalker too. So they just kill the planeswalker, and sacrifice nothing. Basically.
Someone else discards also.
It's just like, wow. It was such a ridiculously over the top, like, strong effect. And this, like, sometimes this card will not play that great. Like, there will be times when nobody has like good as a sacrifice. But then there's the times like this, like what we're talking about, where it's just like, that was ridiculous. And this, I love. The turn 3s in the turn 3 of this card.
2 people played their commander.
Disgusting.
Somebody played like Oracle of Moldiah. It's like, they're all gone.
Disgusting. And then one other person didn't play anything. Oh, they discarded the card. You still got card advantage out of this. This card is so great. It's just the fact that even if they have nothing, you still take something away from them.
Yeah, the only bad board state this could really be on is a super late game clogged board state where everybody's got like 7 creatures. But even then, if you have like a Blood Artist or something, it's still triggering all your stuff your deck wants to do. So it's basically never dead in the right deck.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you 100%. You just want to make sure you got the synergy. I mean, that's what we're always talking about with these cards, right? Like, we never sit down for a video and tell you to play cards with no synergy. That's not what we're talking about. Playcrafter is going in your sacrifice decks, your decks with useless creatures.
Graveyard decks.
Your graveyard decks. All these type of decks that have synergy around it. Because don't just put Playcrafter in the deck. That's not good. None of the cards you just listed, except for maybe Everflowing Chalice and Painlands, are good unless you have synergy.
Yeah, I think also Playcrafter is good with like Midnight Reaper, Grim Horror Spec. So now in that late game scenario, great. Everybody stacks a creature. It's still something, and you just draw a card.
Yeah, exactly. Synergy, baby. Next, Rakdos Charm.
Moving up in the ranks.
Yep. Yeah, it's becoming a card that I was low on in the past, and I've become much higher on it now. 3 mana, exile target player's graveyard. Everybody.
2 mana.
2 mana, exile somebody's graveyard, or you can make everybody lose 1 life equal to the number of creatures they have, or you can destroy target artifact. I was so low on it for a long time. I was never excited about it. And then I've just slowly gained a lot of respect and strength at the exile a graveyard at instant speed ability.
For 2.
And you really can't get it that low anywhere else. And the cards that do it aren't that strong. So I'm 100% in this card. And the fact that it's removal, and I've had it be a burn spell. Like a burn spell that can just finish players off. There's lots of token decks. Lots of decks go wide. They'll have 10, 15 creatures. All right, burn you for 15.
You know what annoys me? That's the mode that annoys me, because I think that's the mode that people pretend is good. And like, that's the flavor text mode. That's the 1 in 100, 1 in 50 games gotcha mode. I could care less whether that mode is on the card. The card is better for it. I'm here for destroy an artifact, exile a graveyard, and I just think that mode is so overhyped.
Yeah,
like, people try to use that mode. It's like, don't try to use that mode. Use the good modes, and then sometimes you can burn somebody and kill players.
I'm here for the order of things. I want to exile a graveyard first. That's the best thing I think on the card. But destroying an artifact also very good. Like
Passable.
Passable, strong. It's a little overcosted. I don't really want to play Shatter, which is what it is.
Right. So it's passable. It's an emergency.
Yeah, and then the burn is like it's there if you need it when it comes up. It's like
rarely.
Rarely. I would say it's more like probably like 1 in like 15, 20 times you cast it, you're probably going to pick that mode.
Yes. Next is another land. It's Kessig Wolfrun. You're paying X, green, red, and you're giving your creature trample and +X/+0 until end of turn. And the trample doesn't require any X, so you can just go green, red, tap against trample. For your big boys, for your 7-power commanders, trample over, and this is the card in budget decks that can lead to commander damage kills. You just go, all right, pump this thing for 8, chunk you for 15, and then now see you next turn.
Yes, and we just talked about this. Not skimping on your mana base when you go to a budget. Don't
Here's
just
the
ignore
utility.
It. Don't just put all of your basics in
Don't
here.
play 30 basics.
Don't play 30 basics and be done, because you can get something like Kessig Wolfrun for nothing, and this card will lead to wins. I've seen it numerous times where this card is just on the battlefield and it does nothing, which fine, because it's a colorless land that's just sitting there, and then all of a sudden, somebody's at enough commander damage that you're like, okay, you can't stop this. Here comes my commander. I'll pump it for +5/+0. You're dead, because the trample now makes you dead. This is it's one of my favorite it's probably my favorite of the cycle. I think Gavony Township is better, but this is probably my favorite of the cycle.
Yeah, that cycle has a lot of bangers. There's a couple stinkers, like Stencia Bloodhall is the main one. Nephalia Drownier doesn't do much.
I mean, even I didn't put it on this list, but Volts of the Archangel, also a budget bomb.
Also a budget bomb?
Yes.
Budget bomb.
But this didn't. I didn't want to list 2 of the same lands in the same cycle for this video. So.
Yeah, we'll just have a whole separate video for these lands and talk about how great they are. Card that has been very great is Terror of the Peaks. Guess what, though? It's like $50,000. So I'm going to play Warstorm Surge, which is a budget bomb, and still deal X, where X is the power of creatures that enter.
Yeah, exactly. This card is not overpowered, not broken. I think
definitely clunky.
Clunky and a budget card. Like, this is a card I want to be playing in my budget decks for sure. But once you get it going, it is a just wait till I untap card. But when you untap, it often leads to the victory, because you can easily burn out one player or just remove every threat off the battlefield so that there's nothing to even threaten you.
Yeah, I don't know. This kind of works with a lot of things. Mass Reanimate, Mass Blink, and even just big, giant chonkers. Like, I'm going to play Inferno Titan and I'm going to play Dracoseth and just start throwing out 6s and 7s, and you can burn people in a couple turns. Warstorm Surge, definitely sweet. It's in the only play in budget decks, but I'm pretty happy with it in budget.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you 100%. Budget card, but in your budget decks, this card is great. Know what's great outside of a budget, though?
On any budget, pretty much at all, as long as you're playing green-red? What?
It's actually Goblin and Archomancer. I know we've talked about this card before, but
I don't care.
I'm going to keep telling you about this card. This card is amazing. Medallions are amazing in your monocolor decks. What if there was a medallion for 2-color decks? Well, it exists in the form of Goblin and Archomancer. If you're playing a Gruul deck, every single non-artifact spell in your deck costs 1 less, and that is so ridiculous. I want you to just think about the idea of taking your average mana value and moving it down 1. Just 1.
Just 1.
Is that good? Oh, of course, it's amazing.
You can start triple spelling, no problem. This thing never looks like a threat, and it always ends up coming down early, and then the threats start piling up on top of it. But you always go back to, how did Joe cast 5 spells this turn? Frickin' Goblin and Archomancer. And since we have Goblin Electromancer, I'm waiting for Goblin Equipomancer and Goblin Sacromancer.
Equipomancer?
Yeah, and the other 2 combinations of red.
Yeah, that is interesting. They could have had the other 2. I like Equipomancer.
You don't like Sacromancer?
Sacromancer sounds
weird. like a machine, like the Sacomatic. I don't want to know what that machine does.
Let's not get onto the love sack where everyone wants us to talk about.
The beanbag?
The beanbag.
Who cares about the stupid beanbag? Please.
We'll talk about it in another video.
I encourage you to do anything else with your time than worry about a beanbag.
Next, we have Forgotten Ancient. This card's amazing. Every time anyone casts a spell, it gets a counter. It's 4 mana. And then, on your upkeep, you can move those counters wherever you want. This thing is just strong. This is not just a budget card. This is a +1/+1 counters card. And it's silly. It demands an answer because everybody's playing spells. That's Magic.
I can't judge them for not playing spells. You have to.
It's Magic the Gathering. Spells have to be cast. They have to play the game. By the time this comes around, you have a ton of spells. If you have a Hardened Scales, any little piece of thing like that, like there's a million different Hardened Scales effects, All right, now all of a sudden 2 counters every time you cast a spell. All right, I'll move them. Why not get an extra counter because I still have Hardened Scales?
Yeah, Forgotten Ancient is just really, really annoying. It's like the Mana Gorger Hydra that I think is playable type thing, where you get like a pseudo overrun even if you have nothing else going on, but you can throw it on a Crystalline Crawler, throw it on a Walking Ballista or Hangerback Walker or whatever budget equivalent and just go crazy with it. It's really annoying. I think you should be very good at remembering your triggers if you play this card, because you will forget some.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's called the Forgotten Ancient, because you will forget a trigger.
It's the most forgettable triggers.
Yes.
Even the upkeep trigger you might forget.
Yes. And no, it's not forgettable. Maxfield.com.
Come on.
The literal best deck building website in the entire universe, multiverse, any other
Metaverse.
in the metaverse. Even though I don't think it's in the metaverse.
I don't think there is a metaverse. Did that shut down? I don't know.
I don't know. I can never keep track of stupid stuff like that. But Moxfield.com, not even close to stupid. In fact, we use it for everything. I just did a tune-up, which is going to come out tomorrow, and the whole deck is on that website. It makes it so easy to take cards out of the deck, to add cards to the deck, to follow. There's a list of all the cards you've added and taken out. It's literally all your adds, all your cuts. You can see them and know what you've done to the deck. So when you're like, oh crap, I have 99 cards, but I know I should have 100, you can go back to the list and be like, oh, that's what I did. I cut blank by accident.
Yeah, Moxfield's on the cutting edge of everything. You can actually immerse yourself in Moxfield VR, virtual reality. You just put your face really, really close to the screen of your computer, and then it's like you're there. You're in the site.
That's called the Moxfield verse.
That's called the Moxverse.
The Moxverse, yes. So what's next? Next card.
Oh, a real card? Peregrine Drake. Honestly, up there with Narset in terms of if you're playing no-hold bards, this goes well beyond budget, but it untaps 5 lands when it enters, and it costs 5. So it's begging to be abused into some kind of infinite combo, and it's painfully easy to do so.
Anything that says flicker it, like a creature with an ability, there's Emil, there's Deadeye Navigator, there's
Eldrazi Displacer.
Eldrazi Displacer. All 3 of these say flicker this, get infinite mana, because how could you not win with the game? And then you literally, what's so crazy about that, in your decks that are doing this, you're going to have some other ETB on the field because they're ETB decks.
Like Muldrifter?
So you're just going to win the game. It's like, oh, I'll draw my whole deck and win the game now on a budget.
Yeah, you generated infinite mana, which gives you an infinite mana to flicker, so any other creature you have can be flickered infinitely, like Muldrifter, to draw your whole deck. And if you can't win from there, I think it's just a deck building issue at that point.
No, 100%. If you have infinite mana and draw your whole deck and your deck can't finish, there is something wrong with your deck.
Like on that turn even. Like I'm not even talking about just wait till I untap. I'm talking about like you should be able to close that turn.
You definitely should. There definitely should be something. Just like, because all you need is something like, I'm just taking an example from this list. If you have one card like Warstorm Surge, okay, there we go. The game's over. As long as your deck has something like that in there.
I mean, we're talking like enter the battlefield, each player mills 1 or each opponent mills 1. Like, there you go.
There's a million different ways that just would put away the game from there. Peregrine Drake's silly though. It's
a card we don't even play because it's just too easy.
It either is just a 2/3 for 0 mana, which isn't that good, or an infinite combos. Like, so it's one or the other. It's either an insanely strong combo piece or it's nothing. Which I don't know. I don't really care for.
We don't want either half.
I don't want nothing.
Personally,
I don't want nothing burgers. And I don't like comboing. So fine with just not playing it.
But if you're playing artifacts, then I would highly recommend playing Sculpting Steel, which I am honestly surprised is a budget bomb. But I guess Brothers War did wonders with this card. It's just copy any artifact and play. Maybe it's yours. Maybe it's theirs. Maybe you get a nice little 3-mana Soul Ring.
Exactly. It's 3 mana. Copy the best artifact and play. It doesn't just have to be yours, like BZ said. This is any artifact that can just play this card, and especially on a budget. This card is in a great budget bomb because there are decks that are just playing this that aren't budget at all. You can be playing a very high power artifact deck and have this in there. This is a combo piece with things like Sharoom. It literally
still combos, yeah.
It goes infinite, so it has combo potential. It can be high power, it can be mid power, it can be low power. You can play this literally anywhere as long as you're an artifact centric deck.
Yep, it's basically a free roll. It's such a good card. I mean, there's a lot to do with it. I encourage you to figure it out as we go on to Shriek Maul, yet another creature with Evoke. It destroys a non-artifact, non-black creature. It's got fear, so you can't block it, and you can do that same thing for 1 and of black if you don't care about keeping the creature. But a lot of times we can respond to the trigger with like Deadly Dispute, or if you're a Village Rites fan, you could do that, or just reanimate the thing, just sack it to Yawgmoth. I don't know. There's whatever budget version of that you want to do. Sack it to Vampiric Rites.
Yeah, any number of artificial things. There's a million ways to do Babala Saga. Activate your Babala Saga so that can be your creature in there. If you have, this is sacrifice synergies. It's just like Playcrafter. They fit in the same kind of decks. I think if you build a budget deck that's playing Playcrafter, it's probably also playing Shriekmaw very, very often.
And it's definitely playing Grimhorror Specs and Midnight Reaper, which now say Shriekmaw is 1 in a black draw card. Kill something, and too many people get scared off by the fact that it's non-artifact, non-black. That's still like 75% minimum of creatures.
Yeah, it's like, they can even just say 70, maybe even 65. But it's like, this is a 2-mana do that on a creature, get a dice trigger. There's so much here. I think people just, what ends up happening is, like, we talk about instant sorceries. We're like, oh man, 3 mana, destroy target creature or planeswalker? That's a terrible rate. And
right, sorcery speed too is bad.
Yeah, it's sorcery speed. And then you're like, what? Why would you ever want Shriekmaw then? It's a terrible rate. 2 mana sorcery, destroy even just target creature sounds terrible. Being a creature is such a huge boost to these kind of cards. Like, it's hard to explain it.
Your other 36 cards that care about creatures in the grave or having creatures or creatures dying all trigger and all care about this, and it makes it not just 1 in a black, destroy something. It's 1 in a black, destroy something, draw a card, lose a life. Maybe you draw a second card. Maybe now there's a creature in your graveyard. You can cast it again with Marin or Carador. It's just, I mean, we say it a lot. We say this stuff a lot. Shriekmaw's great.
Yes. Same thing is true for Timeless Witness. It looks terrible, right? It's 4 mana, get something back. Now, obviously, Eternal Witness is a better card, but...
Pretty much strictly better. It's very rare that you eternalize this.
It is very rare that you eternalize this, but this does have other synergies, and it is way cheaper. I mean, Eternal Witness isn't like inexpensive or card, but when you're on a tight budget, for that $50 budget, this is going to be the thing you go to. And like you said, it does have advantages over the Eternal Witness, where late in the game you just have a ton of mana and your draw's been pretty dead. Boom, get back your best spell from your graveyard and go off from there. This card is awesome.
Some decks can populate the token, copy the token, and just there's more Eternal Witnesses.
Absolutely an awesome synergy. Anything that can populate the token, like, that's such a strong synergy. Like your Gira decks, like
Tristani.
It gets silly when you start doing tokens with ETBs in those kind of decks. On top of that, it also fits in the deck like Henzi. I don't play Eternal Witness. I do play this because it can be blitzed.
Yeah, I think this card, there's a lot of times where it's like, yeah, in this budget brew, would I save $3 and just spend 1 more mana on the exact same card? But that now has a little bit of upside. It's not even just 4 mana Eternal Witness, it's 4 mana Eternal Witness plus Eternalize. And yeah, I do that all the time.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, you're gonna want this card all the time in your budget list, or if you have a ton of synergy, which that's less common for this card. It's definitely a great budget card, though.
Yeah, this next card I'm still like a little iffy on. I have not gotten myself to play it yet, but Cherries can tell you what it does.
It's Decimate, and it destroys, and you need to destroy all of these artifact, enchantment, land, and creature. And I have had it. I've had both situations. I've had all of the amazing blowout, absolutely demolish people, and I've had it stuck in my hand. But I think more often than not, it's not stuck in your hand. The percentages are there where this card has. I just think I've changed my mind on it. Like where I was before, where I was like, oh no, it's going to be too often. Now it just feels like it's not that often, and you always get a 4-for-1 from this card. Yes, the sorcery, but you get rid of at least 2 of the best permanents when you do this. Plus, free land roll lets you hit that stupid annoying Field of the Dead that's been on the field the whole entire time.
If you're playing against me, it'll always trigger. I always have an enchantment out on turn 2 for some reason, and my enchantment always dies. And then I always have like the Field of the Dead that also always dies. And weirdly, one of the things I'm most excited to destroy in red-green is a creature, because red-green can't really just blow up creatures.
Yeah, it is. It gets a huge advantage that like you said, artifact and enchantment. Those are things red-green can do.
They're dead. They don't stand a chance against red-green, but creature.
Yeah, it is nice to just be able to destroy a creature. And like I said, I think that this is castable 85% of the time, and then there is going to be 15% where you sit there and go, dang, it stinks. I wish I had another removal spell. But then you flip to the other side, because the 85% of the time you cast it, it's much better than any other removal spell that would be in its slot.
Yeah, I think if you could play multiples in Commander, I would never play 2 Decimates. But I think the 1 might be good.
Yeah.
1 can be good sometimes.
Yeah, that's a fair way to put it. I mean, I think you're right. If it was not a singleton format, Decimate is a card that wouldn't make the cut. I think you're right, because you would just play like 3. Your deck just gets 4 beasts within 4 Chaos Warp then, right? Because
I wasn't going that deep, but well, yeah, I was talking about in the world where you can only choose to play more Decimates or not.
Oh, okay.
It's a very specific format.
I didn't realize this was Commander, but you could play. I didn't realize Decimate had that. You could play any number of Decimates.
Yeah,
in your
it's
deck.
Decimander. This next one is a card that I've seen people misread like a lot, so I'm just going to read the whole thing. It's 2 blue for an enchantment. at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact, you get a 1/1 Thopter artifact with flying. And then whenever one or more artifacts you control deal combat damage to a player, which can be done up to 3 times, you have 3 players to attack, draw a card.
Yeah, so this is obviously another one of your heavy artifact cards, but I really like it. If you're playing a lot of artifact creatures, lots of artifact, and you're going to be dealing that damage, it's very nice. You're always going to get it. And something, this card always triggers. You never miss out on the trigger because in your decks, if you built them right, you're going to have tons of artifact lands. So even when the board gets wiped of creatures, wow. Well, let's check. Boop, down here, artifact land. I still have it.
Yeah, the combat damage can be mediocre, and the Make a Thopter is definitely mediocre. But when you stick them together for the same price as like a Biden of Thassa or a Recon mission, then it just ends up starting to perform, especially since the Thopters have flying, and flying is hard to block. So as long as you're remembering what this card does and putting enough artifacts in your deck to make artifacts every turn, I think you're good.
Yeah, exactly. If you ever think there's a chance you're going to miss that trigger, other than like a freak accident, like, oh, I didn't draw artifact lands at all this game, or my draw was just really off, then don't play this. But if you're going to consistently make the 1/1 every single turn, I'm in. I like this card a lot.
Yeah, I've built decks where this is not good, and it's an artifact deck where it's just like there's too many things that make artifacts, not enough artifacts. Keep it in mind for you.
This next card is super interesting. It's Loyal Apprentice. It's a 2-mana, 2/1, doesn't matter, it's stats. But at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, you get a 1/1. Get this card now. I don't usually tell you to hurry, but all the other versions are above $1. They're almost $2. And the newest version, you can get a bunch of them for $100. Now, I actually looked at a bunch of cards that with new printings, and I tried to make sure you could actually get them for $100. So none of them made it because I was like, oh, it's in the new Phyrexia Precon. Is it going to be under $1? It's it says it is, but when you look, it's you can't do that. Loyal Apprentice, you can get it right now if you need a deck for it. This card sacrifices, makes artifacts, makes tokens. It does a million little tiny things. It doesn't actually sacrifice.
Yeah, it's
it doesn't sacrifice.
That's fake news.
It's good for red-black sacrifice decks because it makes a token. It's 2 bodies for 2 mana. That keeps making bodies. The card's really strong.
Just make sure you have your commander, obviously, but your commander probably costs 2, 3, 4, or 5 mana, and then you can play Loyal Apprentice first or right after and still get the Thopter right away. The fact that it's like a 1/1 Thopter artifact with a haste, it's just a lot of words on this card, and I think it's probably the best loyal card. The Drake draws you a card. The green one is really overcosted. The white one is garbage, and the black one makes them lose life. I think this is probably the best one.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Loyal Apprentice, there's a lot of decks that want this card. You probably have a deck in your collection that you don't realize wants this card. It wants it. It's so much better than it looks. Because it looks like, but it's actually,
You know, maybe that's a good description of the Budget Bomb series. It looks, but then you go, hey, I get all these 20 cards every video, including this video right here. It's another Budget Bomb. You haven't seen it. You should probably watch it because you've gotten so much out of this video. Time for some more value.
Peace out, Trap Scouts.